My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Succession Season 3. And this will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch my review because I will be going in depth. Now, I loved both Succession Season 1 and 2. They were both really good seasons of television. And I heard really good things about this season, and I was definitely super excited going into it. The way Season 2 ended, with Kendall finally standing up to his dad the way that he did. I was just so pumped to start this season. What's going to happen? It's Kendall and Greg against the rest of the Roy family. I couldn't wait to see it. And the truth is that storyline loses its momentum pretty early on. The impact that I had at the end of Season 2 was faded by the end of Episode 2, I'd say. It doesn't last throughout the entire season, which is definitely the biggest disappointment. There are moments where we get Kendall and Logan together, and those moments have weight behind them. Whether it's them sitting together in silence, those moments have weight, or if they're talking and arguing, that stuff is all really captivating, but I didn't get enough of that. I wanted more of that. But the truth is that storyline that I was so excited to see play out just is terribly handled. Like, the Kendall against Logan storyline barely gets any attention. It's there and it's important for the first couple of episodes, and then it just fades away and then no one really cares about it anymore. And that was just so disappointing to me. Like, when you have that ending of Season 2 and then just go nowhere interesting with it, I was definitely left disappointed. And another thing about it is that I'm going to sound like Logan Roy here, but the truth is, I like Kendall better when he's sad. I know that's awful for me to say. I even said in my Season 2 reviews, there's that one line Naomi says to Kendall, well, he only likes you when you're broken. But that also applies to me. Like, when Kendall is getting, when bad things are happening to him, I feel bad for him. And you're rooting for him. But when he's happy and he's confident and he's loving life, he's an insufferable jackass. I couldn't stand him this season. He's going up there acting all woke and stuff, and I just found him to be unbearably aggravating. Like, I couldn't stand his character. And I'm just like, I know the show wants me to root for him as he's technically the best of the bunch, but man, he's making that very difficult for me to root for him. Very difficult indeed. Like, there's one episode at a stakeholders meeting and he pulls off this big stunt and just, I found it to be insufferable. I was cringing. And I'm just tired of them treating this character this way. Like, he's not progressing, he's not growing, he's degressing. He's going around in circles. He's not growing. It's just this endless cycle. And that's just not interesting for me. It's not engaging for me to watch this character now when he keeps slipping up time and time again. He got this moment. He was going to go up against his dad. And for him to blow it as much as he did, it just annoyed me. And he just did so many stupid stuff. Like, he fired Lisa. For some reason, we get no follow-up on the documents that he had. It's just like they're afraid to take this character anywhere new. Like, in my review for Season 1 of Succession, I mentioned that Kendall reminded me of Jamie from Yellowstone. He can't stand his family, he wants to stand up against him, but every time he's about to, he stops and he doesn't and he degresses. And it happens so often to an eventual point where I just don't care about the character anymore. I don't care about him trying to stand up to his parents anymore. I just don't care. And I thought Succession would have been better than Yellowstone in that regard, but it turns out they're not. They're caught in the same repetitive pattern that Yellowstone is with Jamie. It's just disappointing to see that. Like, anytime you think that this season's going to progress the characters, they really don't. Like, in Episode 2, Kendall has Roman and Shiv and Connor to come over, and he's like, come on guys, join me. We can do it together. And I'm just like, okay, please have one of them go with him. This would be an interesting dynamic to see one of his siblings side with him. And anytime that you feel like they might progress the characters and switch things up a bit, they don't go there. So that entire episode just felt like a huge wasted potential. And it left me disappointed. You also got Greg, who's teamed up with Kendall, and then Kendall does treat him like garbage, and Greg just ends up going back on Kendall. He goes back to the Roy family, and it's like nothing even happened with him. And it's just so unsatisfying. And can I just say, why is Connor even a character on this show? He does nothing. Like, we're 3 seasons in at this point, and I figured they'd give him something to do now. Like, they're like, oh, he's gonna run for president, and I thought that's where they were gonna take his character, but he does nothing this season either. He's just a nothing character. He does nothing, he says nothing of value, he's just kind of there in moments. So, yeah. But yeah, it just does disappoint me that there's no real progression of the characters, and even the storyline of just watching Logan's empire start to crumble doesn't get fulfilled. Like, season 2, I felt like it was building up the collapse of the empire, and to have nothing happen to it in this season, it's underwhelming. Like, he immediately recovers and everything is good again. Stewie and Sandy, who've been going after him since season 1, that entire storyline just goes nowhere. Like, at the end of season 1, you're just like, oh, where's this going to go? And it goes nowhere. 1.5 seasons later, it went nowhere. And then the entire Kendall storyline went nowhere. Kendall had no real effect on Logan and his company whatsoever. So it's just like, what's the point of all these different storylines if they aren't going to amount to anything? Like, for goodness sakes, Kendall's storyline got wrapped up in the beginning of his birthday party episode, because Jerry just gets a phone call from someone, and then she's like, good news everyone, Kendall failed, and everyone's clapping and celebrating, and it's just like, that's it? That's the conclusion we get to the season 2 cliffhanger? The unbeatable and unstoppable villain just gets stale after a while. Like, they have to have some sort of weakness. If nothing bad ever happens to Logan, it just feels contrived. It feels like he's protected by the plot. I like some of the back and forth between Kendall and his family, but there's just not enough of it. And this season just felt so aimless. It meanders a lot. Like, by the end of episode 5, I'm just like, where is this season going? And by the time we get to the finale, it does save the season somewhat. The finale to this season is actually pretty fantastic. It might be the show's best episode. And it's just frustrating when getting to that finale has been as underwhelming as it is. And then the finale fully delivers and you're just like, I can't completely crap on this season. Like, I've been tearing it apart, but the finale did change the way I view it. If I view it as, okay, this is going to be Roman getting closer to Logan, Shiv getting closer to Logan and doing everything right, only for him to backstab them as well, and for Tom to backstab Shiv and to take over, it does change how I view lots of the season. Because before I was viewing it as Kendall versus Logan. But now that I know what the end goal was of where they wanted to be at the end of this season, lots of it does make sense in how they did certain things. Am I still frustrated that none of the siblings took Kendall's side at the beginning of the season? Absolutely. Like, that's the storyline we were invested in at the time. But where this show could go from this season finale, I'm still on board with it. You know, like, that finale when the Roy siblings are actually together, like, Roman and Shiv are there for Kendall in a way that feels true to their characters, and for them to all stand up to Logan like that, and for him to immediately backstab them, I actually think all that stuff is perfection. It really is. It shows that Roman and Shiv can stand up to him, and as soon as they did, they lost everything. The dad screwed them over. And then it does make the second episode a bit more tragic, because when you look back on it, you're like, if they took Kendall's side there, then they wouldn't be put in the position they were in the season finale. So it does add some layers to the rest of the season. Enough to save it? Yes, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I do think the finale saves this entire season. I don't think this season is anywhere near as good as it could be. It's definitely the weakest season so far. But man, that finale just worked for me in every single way. And Tom's storyline this season is the best part. Like, Shiv is unbearably nasty to him. And he's just done taking it. And you do want to see him stand up against her. And I think the point where he decided that he was going to backstab her was when Shiv was at her mom's wedding and she's saying that she hopes that her mom's marriage is every bit as fulfilling as Shiv's marriage is. And that's when I think Tom was just like, I'm done with this bitch. Like, she was just awful to him. And I don't blame Tom for doing what he did. And Matthew McFadden is absolutely the standout this season. He's both hilarious and tragic and just sells you on his character every step of the way. I really think that, like, that part of the season is a part where you get the most payoff in the finale. And just like the other two seasons, the cast is once again fantastic. Everybody does a great job here. I love Kieran Culkin this season. Like, he's such a dick. But boy, those last 10 minutes in his performance there, like, you can feel the genuine heartbreak. And he's fully understood just how big of a monster his dad is. Sarah Snook's great. Jeremy Strong is good. Like I said, I did find his character to be annoying, but he still does a good job. J. Smith Cameron, I believe is her name, who plays Jerry. Nicholas Braun does a good job. And Brian Cox is fantastic. He's consistently great in this show. Even if he's not given the best material to work with, he's always fantastic. I will say that one actor who was in one episode of this season who I really did not like was Adrian Brody. He's a really great actor, but I thought his performance was really bad. And that the entire writing in that episode was just so contrived. Like, they wanted a way to bring Logan and Kendall together, and then Adrian Brody's just like, why don't you two just get along? And I thought that was a really bad episode. Maybe the worst episode of the entire season. And speaking of contrived nonsense, I also hated the stockholders meeting episode. I thought it was really bad and very contrived. Like, Logan is fine before the stockholders meeting, then he gets sick during the meeting, and he's immediately fine afterwards. I just don't buy it. It was so contrived, and I just didn't have any engagement in what was going on in that episode. Also, in the season finale, they mentioned Mark Zuckerberg, and I really don't like that just because it kind of makes it feel like this show's supposed to be grounded in reality, and I don't know, I just wish they'd stick to their own fictional companies with their fictional CEOs. It kind of takes me out of it when they mention Mark Zuckerberg, and they did mention Twitter a lot this season too, so I don't know, I wish those things weren't mentioned. It just kind of takes me out of the show. But speaking of Twitter, it does feel like the writers spent a bit more time at Twitter for this season. I was not a fan of some of the writing. Like, don't get me wrong, some of the writing and the characters' interactions are great, but there's moments where they're talking about canceling, and anytime any show says cisgender male, I immediately cringe. And there's just a few of those things which really annoyed me. Marcia comes back for one moment in an episode, and then she's gone the rest of the season. So I don't know what happened to her. Maybe I missed something, but I thought that was really odd for her to come back, be like, oh, your sons are awful, and then for her to be gone again. It's just really odd. Tabicia? Okay, you know, I get that Woman and her could have broken up, and we didn't have to see her again. But they keep bringing her up like they're still together, and I don't know why they can't just say that Woman broke up with her or something, because she's not in this season at all, so I just felt like the constant bringing her up was weird. And I wish Lisa was a bigger part of this episode. Kendall Zoyle, I thought the actress did a really good job. I liked her as a character, and for what that character could have done this season, I just don't feel like they gave her enough to work with. Look, this season has a lot of issues. Undeniable. It's a bit of a mess. It feels aimless in moments. It takes a while to get going. They completely wasted the end of season 2. Kendall was an unbearably annoying character at times. But my goodness, that finale was just phenomenal, and it does change the way that I view the rest of the season. And I can see that they got certain elements right. And like I said, some of the writing between the character is really good, even if the overarching story isn't really that well written. But I think that the best description of this season is that it's not what I wanted this season to be. But for what this season is, I did end up liking it enough. And that's only due to the strengths of the finale. So I'm going to go ahead and give Succession Season 3 a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, have you seen Succession Season 3? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin,